Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Reverend Tomas Garza, and a special shout out and thank you to all of the recent subscribers. There have been a number of you, and welcome. What we're about to do today is get into the preface of A Course in Miracles. What you'll find here on this channel are, well, we're well over 650 videos here. Almost all of them are devoted to A Course in Miracles and the self-study curriculum that it is. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a little bit about me. It's the foundational centerpiece of my own spiritual practice. I've been studying it for 9 years and teaching for several years, about the last 3 or 4, actually. And this began by invitation of the folks at the Enlightened World Network in January of 2021 as a live stream. So if you scroll all the way back, it's literally hundreds of videos, because I do this almost every day. There are a number of lives, and we used to do this live. After about 6 months, we decided to pre-record it, and that's the fashion that it's now offered. The beauty of this is you don't see me checking my phone for all of the live comments. And, well, I think I want to say anyway that it ensures a better delivery for you, a more fluid delivery for you when I'm not checking my device. So we've looked at the workbook for students, we've looked at the manual for teachers, the clarification of terms, and the 2 supplements, psychotherapy, purpose, process, and practice, and the Song of Prayer. That leaves the biggie, the text. And we'll start with the preface today. Preface to A Course in Miracles. So some of you may have quite a bit of familiarity with this. A number of you who tune in to these videos in this series are experienced course students, and there are quite a few of you that have been studying this material longer than I have. I've been at this for 9 years, and some of you have been at this longer. Now, if you're an experienced student, you're welcome here, and I hope that you stick around. If you're a beginner, same. Because as experienced students, we always need to get back to the basics, don't we? We have a tendency in this world to get cute and to subdivide and to specialize and to wall things off. We do that a lot, don't we? It's almost instinctive to wall things off and to compartmentalize. And when we do that in any way, we neglect the truth of what really is, which is oneness. We'll say plenty more about that. So what is A Course in Miracles? Well, the preface, the first couple of parts were written by Helen Schucman herself. Now, a bit of history. The course was dictated to a woman by the name of Helen Schucman beginning in 1965. Now, Helen was a PhD in medical psychology at Columbia University in New York. As she puts it in this segment, How It Came, which we're talking about today, this came about to her as a person that is, as she puts it, thoroughly invested in the values of the world. I can relate to that. I've got a doctorate degree. I do. A number of you may too. And we all invest in the values of the world because that's how we're raised. It's how we're brought up. And if you want to say conditioned and take it a little further, indoctrinated, that too. Right? I mean, it's what societies teach. It's what our schools teach. It's what our parents and family teach. Right? Teaches us that this is us the body, and we're out there running amok, competing with other bodies for what we deem to be scarce resources. And if you really think about it, things like status and prestige. So Helen received this material. Now, her companion on this, her partner, if you want to say, in this, was another PhD from Columbia University by the name of William Thetford. And William, and he's lovingly referred to as Bill, which is how Helen referred to him. They were colleagues, and it's Columbia University, a highly prestigious, highly competitive academic environment. So you can imagine some of the drama that goes on in a situation like that, where everyone is invested in the values of the world, like status, prestige, and status, and prestige, and more prestige. What exactly is prestige? Well, it's an idea, isn't it? We'll come back to ideas often as we go through the text of this course. It's something very intangible, isn't it? It's something that we think about, and assign to certain people, to certain groups of people, like PhDs at Columbia University, like people that get excellent research grants, that have lots of highfalutin professional contacts all over the world, that have a high reputation. Again, thoroughly invested in the values of the world, seems an unlikely place for a beautiful channeled message to occur. Yet, as Helen puts it, and we've all been told, with God, all things are possible. Are they not? So, how this began was Bill became frustrated at one point with the lack of collaboration in their department, with the competitive nature of things, the combative overall atmosphere, the competitive atmosphere, and said that there's got to be another way. We'll come back to this. It's really important. He said there's got to be another way, and as if on cue, Helen agreed to help him find that. They weren't talking about A Course in Miracles. They weren't talking about bringing a message of pure non-duality to the world. Of course, pure non-duality is beyond words, beyond all concepts, but they weren't talking about bringing this to the world. They were talking about how to get along better professionally and personally with one another. And that constitutes the little willingness that the Holy Spirit needed to come in and take charge, which is what we're invited to let him do. Or it, if you prefer. Holy Spirit, not human, of course. So they agreed to find this way, and Bill suggested that Helen start writing down some of her interesting and highly symbolic dreams. And she was very surprised one day to get introduced to what she would call the voice. As she was writing, it said, "This is A Course in Miracles." And you can imagine, what's that? And the voice began to dictate this course to Helen. This process took 7 years, more or less, beginning in 1965. And what would happen is Helen would listen to the voice. And even though it made her uncomfortable, as you might imagine, unless you have received channeled material yourself, some of you may have. If you hadn't, and you didn't even necessarily think this was possible, you would think this is a little strange, right? I'm a little uncomfortable here. And she was, yet it never occurred to her to stop because she knew deep down that somewhere, at some point in time, she had agreed to this. And Bill had also agreed to this. How it would work was Helen would listen to the voice and take down what the voice said in shorthand, in her shorthand notebook. And then the following day, what she would do is read her notes to Bill, who would type them up. That was their collaboration. There's a lot more to it historically, of course, but that's the summary of it. And from that came A Course in Miracles. The voice could go on as long as Helen was able to listen to it, and then pause, and then pick right back up where it started again the following day without missing a beat. So, what's relevant here is the voice later identified itself as Jesus. You'll notice in A Course in Miracles Christian looking terminology, such as God, such as Holy Spirit, and incidentally, you'll also notice the term ego, the ego, which may be familiar to you if you're a student of Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, Hinduism, traditions like that. We'll say plenty more about God and the ego, both. And that's the basis of the course. It's how it came. You'll notice that Helen and Bill's names are not on the cover of this. What's on the cover of A Course in Miracles is the name of the publisher and copyright holder, the Foundation for Inner Peace. They didn't put their names on the cover because this material is intended to stand alone. It's not proprietary. This is important. It's not proprietary. It's not their property. Helen simply received the material. Bill helped her in bringing it to the world. As Helen writes, it's not intended to be the basis for another cult. Thank God. That's the last thing this world needs, isn't it? So, if you're new to this, and if you're not new to this, that's how it came. That's the gist of it. That's the quick synopsis. So I want to say a couple of things here before we wrap up today. And that is the cool thing about this, the genius, in fact, is that this is a self-study curriculum. You take what you wish to take, what you're called to take at a given time. Nobody's forcing you. It's not a religion. Helen just said it's not meant to form the basis of another cult, nor another religion with prescribed and proscribed behavior. Do this, don't do that. No, it's self-study. That's the genius of A Course in Miracles. Another thing is its inherent consistency. This course is holographic. Just like time is holographic, everything that we take to be past, present, and future is occurring all at once. In fact, it's already occurred. And take it another step further. The separation between God and ourselves, supposed separation, never happened. This course is not presented in a linear fashion as we conceive time in the world. This means that every single part contains the whole. That's also what it means. Every single section of this course contains the entire thought system, and it is a thought system. It's not required that you believe that this material was channeled and received in the manner Helen describes it. That's not required at all. It's not required that you even believe this is possible. In fact, if you're curious about A Course in Miracles, you could even open it up and treat it as you would a novel. Why not? When we pick up a work of fiction, we know that someone made it up. It's not what we call true or reality. It's a work of fiction. Think of it like a movie as well. We suspend our disbelief and become intimately involved with characters in a movie or a work of fiction that somebody made up, don't we? You may, if you wish, try this approach. We're invited here with this course to just in the workbook for students anyway, do the exercises. So we can extend that to just read the material. You don't have to believe it. But here you are watching me. This is what I teach. I don't teach anything else. This is all about A Course in Miracles. So, a good question for self-inquiry. If you're not sure why you're here and listening to this, that's really good. If you are sure, that's fantastic, of course, right? But if you're not, that's a really good question for self-inquiry. There's something deep down inside you that is drawing you to this material. I promise you, it's not me. What you're looking at is an image on your screen. Really? Is it not? There's something about this material that's striking that chord. Now, it can look differently for each and every one of us, but this is what compels us to practice spirituality. This is what causes us to pursue this series of practices and traditions and rituals that we refer to as spirituality in the world. It's this deep inner knowing, like Bill's deep inner knowing that there's got to be another way. I mean, how many times in your life have you thought that? Yeah, that there's got to be another way. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more loving way, a more joyful way. There's got to be more to it than just wake up, put on clothes, go to the bathroom, go off to work or sit down at your desk to work, check email, do laundry, rinse, repeat. There's got to be more to it than that. And there is. And we all know that. That's why people practice spirituality. Now, we can run away internally from this voice as much as we want to. No limit on that. We can run around for decades, for this entire lifetime, if you want, and deny that spirituality is even a thing. Deny that there's more to it than what meets the body's eyes and the physical senses. Of course, there's more to it. So, as we go forward here, this is an invitation to you to listen to this voice. You may not hear actual words. It might be a feeling that you get. Yeah. It might be a deep inner knowing, something you just gut level, just know at your core. Now, you may hear it in something someone else says. Maybe it's in something that I say. Maybe it's in something someone else says, or you notice something and it makes you think of truth, the reality of who you are, which incidentally is the same as who I am and the same as your worst political enemy. Yeah. The same as your ex, the same as all of us. You only have to be able to count to one in this course. One equals one. And we do mean that literally. Now, what we call the spiritual path is our awakening to that. Important point about this course: it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how you were raised in terms of religion or spirituality. It doesn't matter at all. Helen considered herself an atheist, by the way, when she started receiving this material. It doesn't matter if you consider yourself to be that either. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter what your current practice is. Jesus refers to this as part of a universal curriculum. What's the universal curriculum? It's awakening. Our awakening. That's universal. We're all headed there. Now, there are many doors. There are many different spiritual traditions. This is but one of them. And because, again, part of the genius of this material, because it's a self-study curriculum, you can take whatever you're called to take here. You can take this as your main practice, as I do, and some of you have, or you can take it in bits and pieces to augment your current walk without having to abandon any tradition that you're currently called to practice and you have a connection to. It can supplement, it can highlight, it can help illuminate your walk. My invitation is that you let it. If you take this as your main practice, it's complete in and of itself. So I want to invite you to join me on this journey. We'll continue to look at a couple other parts of the preface, and then we will get into the text of this course. Subscribe button is right down here. It's the little red arrow. I know a number of you have subscribed recently. Thank you for that. If you just hover your cursor over there, it brings up the button, and well, I come to you several times a week. This is the foundational centerpiece of my own practice, and along the way, I will share with you my experience with this material, because there are a lot of stories. There are a lot of things that I resisted at first that I'll sprinkle in and talk about, because I'm a student of this course right along with you. It happens to be my calling to turn on the camera and microphone and teach, but I assure you I'm a student of this course right along with you. There's nothing special about me. There are no powers or abilities that I seem to possess that you cannot also have or develop. One equals one. Now, will you? Who knows? Who knows? It may not be your calling to address a worldwide audience on YouTube. I mean, maybe it's not. That doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. What matters is you're here. That's what I thank you for, is your commitment and dedication to spiritual practice and awakening. I am here to help you along the way and to be a guide in whatever way seems appropriate. So please ask me questions. Feel welcome to leave comments, and I will see you back in here. Thank you for joining.